Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Coastal League Invitational. I am Jake Muller, joined today by my Blue Blazer buddy, Lou Cromie. We're here to bring you the semifinals of this invitational tournament. We have finished the group stages. The preliminary stages wrapped up last Thursday. And we now have our 4 players that have qualified for the semifinals. Lou, I'm really happy to be here with you and to get to cast these really great matches here.
Yeah, finally time for us both to take the mic together. We've been waiting for this moment for so long. We've also been waiting. This is now week 3 of this invitational, the final week. We've battled through all of the different Swiss rounds, or sort of the round robin rounds at the beginning. And now we're finally here into that top 4 bracket where we've got the top 2 seeds from each of the group stages. And now facing off against each other. So you're going to have 1A from Group A, obviously, facing off against the second seed of Group B. So you can see there from the bracket how our pairings are going to be shaping up. You've got James and Marcus, first of all, and then Aaron and Alex as our second semi-final match. So there's so much Pokemon action here. They've battled it through so much to get to where they are now, and there's so much at stake now.
Absolutely. James has had a phenomenal run so far. He hasn't even dropped a set, only losing 1 game between all 3 of his best of 3s so far. So a pretty dominant performance so far from Beastcoast own James Beck. But obviously, we have Marcus, who's we know is a phenomenal player. He had a very great run through his group as well. Only coming, I believe, just 1 game shy of the first seed behind Aaron. So that group is also very tight. And then in the other match, like you said, we do have Aaron Zhang against. I'm
Alex
entirely
Gomez.
blanking right now. Yes, thank you. I just lost that immediately. Yeah, another great pair of players there. Actually, Aaron and Alex is kind of a fun match because they've been known to be really great friends, and they've built some teams together that have like taken them to top cut of like the world champions. So really exciting match there for sure.
100%. And I love as well, there's kind of this battle from across the pond. You've got Europe
Yeah,
and
true.
America in both of these matches. So there's a little bit of sort of, I'd say, country reputations at stake as well. And just loads to be playing for, as well as part of that sort of big 5,000 group prize pool that they've got access to. And also to be able to be the winner, like you want to be the champion of this invitational. Like that's really what these guys are all playing for here. And they've all
Exactly.
got so many accolades under their belt. But this is the first Beast Coast Invitational. Like you want to be the first one. That's making history.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always fun to be kind of the first person to, win a big tournament. And even if it wasn't the first one, like winning tournaments for pride is great. Winning tournaments for money, also great. So there's a lot of the line here for all these players, and I'm really excited to see kind of the teams they bring, how they pilot them. We've seen everyone bring 3 different teams to this tournament so far. And these players can elect to change their team every week. So we might see some players kind of catering their teams to some Pokemon or trends that they've noticed in their opponents. So it might be fun to see kind of the adjustments these players might make from their norm to give them a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really interesting compared to maybe other online tournaments that you would have in sort of the traditional Pokemon video game circuit, where you bring the same team to the event and that's the one you're stuck with, no matter who you're up against, no matter what round you're going into, it's always going to be the same 6 Pokemon. But
Right.
because these trainers are able to shake things up every single week, you can not only play against maybe popular cores, but you also can play against the player. Like if you know they're really well known for running something a little bit creative, a little bit edgy, you might want to start looking for those hidden techs and find ways to counter them. Or if you know that they're the kind of player who's going to definitely stick with this Pokemon, this core that they're just known for running, you can maybe start planning a little bit of a game strategy against them early on. But I think it's quite interesting if you're maybe trying out a team and then, hey, it didn't go so well. This tech didn't really work. I can, get rid of it now. I've tried it and let's bring another game, another team to the next week's match. So I think that's been really interesting to be able to see even like drastic changes and then little tweaks as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of teams, let's just go ahead and jump into our first set of teams. Our first match today is between James and Marcus. And James is running this team of Tyranitar, Excadrill, Hitmontop, Rotom-Wash, Dragapult, and Togekiss. So, it looks like a somewhat standard set of 6 Pokemon there, but knowing James, there's got to be some tricks up his sleeve there. He's a very creative builder, and he has built some teams that have taken him very far in tournaments before. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see something kind of funky pop up here and there.
Yeah, he's like the master of consistency, but he always has a little creative tweak in there as well. I mean, we all saw last week he had a really interesting match against Jamie Boy, who we knew for that match it was going to be a showcase. Jamie couldn't advance through to these top 4 stages. So he brought a belly drum extravaganza team, and James
That was
just
so
kind of was
fun.
like it was amazing, right? Like you can see from the recap here, James was after game 1, James lost game 1. I think that was the only game he lost of the entire tournament so far. As you can see here in game 1, he was stuck to just icy winding with his drift blim and trying to pick up some KOs. But that Horlucha that you see up there as well, the Dynamite's Horlucha, was his secret weapon. And in games 2 and 3, he brought it in just to start wrecking through Jamie's Darmanitan and picking up really clean KOs one after the other. Which just goes to show, even when you're up against something that you could never in a million years have predicted to
Right.
face, he had a strategy.
Yeah, and this is our other semifinal, not our semifinal, our other group, our week 3 match from this group last week. We did have Marcus against Sejun, and a really, really tight set between these players. They both brought teams that had these bulkier modes, especially with those Ferrothorns and the Dusclops on Marcus's end, which I believe we're going to see again from him today. It's kind of a Pokemon he's been using consistently throughout this tournament, but a really fantastic set. There was this was I believe a 2-1 set, so
Yeah,
we
it was
did
close.
game 3, but just really fun to see entirely all the way around. Both of these players put on a really great show.
Mhm.
I'm just really excited for this match today.
Yeah, same. I can't wait to see what tweaks maybe they've made to some of the teams and
hmm
what they're going to bring. But James as well, like when we kind of look back at him throughout the whole tournament, he's had a few really surprising Pokemon. Like remember his Charizard with Focus Blast
Right. Oh my gosh,
from
that was
week
wild.
1.
Yeah.
Like that
I
all
think.
took us by
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah. No, like it's exactly that. So like Charizard is a kind of it's a somewhat standard Pokemon. That Gigantamax Charizard is really strong. It's performed well in tournaments, but if you look at a Charizard, you do not expect Focus Blast like
No,
at
you don't
all.
expect Belly Drum either, but
Exactly true. So we've
it's
seen a couple
been
different Charizard sets this tournament so far. So that's a great example of kind of the
Mhm.
tweaks that James can put on his teams. But enough about James's team. Let's jump into
Mhm.
Marcus's real quick. Marcus will be running this team of Dusclops, Rotom Heat, Primarina, Ferrothorn, Mimikyu, and Dragapult.
And Primarina's been a Pokemon that's really shone in this tournament so far. Not really the most rated Pokemon beforehand, but it's really been discovered as sort of Series 3 of Pokemon video games come
hmm
out. And we've seen Marcus utilize it really well, particularly if you apply loads of bulk to it and then you Dynamax it, you can deal
Right.
a lot of really good damage while the Pokemon just sits there and just starts soaking up attack after attack after attack. The other really good Pokemon on his team that I really want to talk about is that Ferrothorn. It's
Yeah.
a Pokemon that at the minute, if you play on any other competitive ladders and things like that, you see it everywhere, rocking the strategy of Iron Defense and Body Press.
Yep.
And I think Marcus as well piloted it previously in one of the weeks where his opponent just didn't have an answer for it. So Ferrothorn just sat on the field, bulked itself up, and started picking up KOs. So if you're James, you really need to make sure that you've got a way to counter that Ferrothorn, otherwise you could be in trouble.
Yeah, that Ferrothorn set is really annoying to face because with that Iron Defense, you're boosting that defense to an even higher level. Ferrothorn's defense already naturally sky high, but you just make it, really, really hard to get damage onto that Ferrothorn. And if you combine that with Leech Seed, give the Ferrothorn
Mm.
a means of pretty consistent recovery, while also kind of chipping away at its opponents. It can be a real nuisance to take down for a lot of teams. The
Hmm.
Rotom Heat on Marcus's team, I think, is kind of interesting. It's not very, or it's really not used as much as its washing machine counterpart, like we see on James's team. But it's kind of it's a traded matchups for the most part. I think specifically if you just look at how it stacks up against James's team,
Hmm.
you forfeit a Tyranitar matchup entirely, basically, and you're much worse in the Rotom Mirror because you are a fire
Hmm.
type against a water type. But it actually fares much better against Togekiss because you resist those fairy type attacks. You get to resist that Dazzling Gleam.
Hmm.
And you have the option to overheat an Excadrill, which is slightly more accurate.
Powerful.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
powerful, a little bit more accurate than Hydro Pump. You do, if the Excadrill is carrying something like Rock Slide, you're weak to that. So it's kind of it's a trade off there. But interesting choice for the Rotom Heat. Considering he has the Primarina, the Rotom Wash would have be a little bit redundant with the water types. So kind of an interesting choice for the fire type there on Marx's team.
Yeah, Rotom's a Pokemon that's really come into its own. We've seen, like you've said, a lot of sort of the oven version, the washing machine version, but we've also seen the little lawnmower out there on
Yeah,
occasion.
yeah,
Rotom Mow has been quite popular, having that grass type as well. You can take a few more different types of attacks that you wouldn't normally be able to. And again, it's just that typing synergy. Which ones you need to have on your team, maybe to switch in, take an attack, or also then have that offensive pressure to pick up KOs against Pokemon that you maybe aren't so well suited against. So like you said, it's interesting. We've got 2 different Rotoms on here as well. We've also got 2 Dragapults. And whenever I see a Dragapult versus Dragapult, I always worry about 2 things. One, the speed tiers. And
yeah.
secondly, is there going to be a self weakness policy proc?
Yeah, I mean, especially considering Marcus's team, you have the Mimikyu, you have the Dusclops. We've seen both of those run Shadow Sneak in this tournament to proc the weakness policy on this partner Dragapult. On James's end, the Dragapult could be procced by a Sucker Punch Hitmontop, I believe. So if that is an option he's carrying, that's a very likely combo there. But that's a very good point. The Dragapults it's a somewhat of a volatile mirror because the speed is really what determines it. Oftentimes I think any Dragapult these days is running a Ghost type attack. So if you're both going to Dynamax your Dragapult and go for that Max Phantasm or a Shadow Ball or a Phantom Force in non-max form, then it really just comes down to who's faster. So a really good point there.
Yeah, I like having the Hitmontop on there as well. It's a Pokemon that can be really nice to reset your ball position. Obviously, bringing in a cheeky Intimidate can be really beneficial for lowering the attack stat on the opposing Pokemon. Having access to something like Fake Out and Wide Guard as well can be really great supportive roles there. So you can stop any of those pesky rock slides or sort of spread damage that comes in. And then also the item. A lot of people like to have a eject button on their Hitmontop so that
Yep.
if it gets any damage, it can switch right back out and do everything all over again.
I mean, Marcus famously created one of the teams that has, or one of the most famous
Oh,
teams that has
yeah.
a eject button Hitmontop back in 2016 with Wolf. So
Yeah,
I
top
wouldn't be
4
surprised
world.
to see that there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a nice little nostalgia kickback for him there. But here we are. We're going to be jumping straight into this game. Remember, it's the semi-finals. There's so much to play for. They're battling in a best of 3 to make it to grand finals. And don't forget as well, spectators, there is a 5-minute delay on screen, and we will be switching the player perspective just for some professional integrity as we go. But the leads are out here. I believe it's James's team on the left.
Yep.
Yep, James's team, sorry. There we go. The names have popped up straight away with Hitmontop and Tyranitar, and Marcus has got that Primarina and the Mimikyu. So what do you think about these leads here, Jake?
I think the Hitmontop is pretty scared right now. The Hitmontop really doesn't like facing down a fairy type and a ghost type. Well, 2 fairy types, really. The Tyranitar also really not in the best spot. It still threatens a lot of damage into either of these Pokemon. With that sand boost, it probably will be able to survive something from the Primarina, thanks to that boosted special defense. But the Hitmontop in particular, a little bit scared of something like a Moonblast from Primarina or a Play Rough from the Mimikyu. We got the Intimidate on the Mimikyu, so that's good. But the Hitmontop notably jumping back into its Pokeball here.
Yeah, like you said, it was looking pretty scared and it's got on out of there, and Togekiss comes in as the replacement. But it is the semi-finals, it's going to be all action, and we've got a turn 1 Dynamax coming out here. I believe this is coming out from Marcus's side, and it is going to be that Primarina, a Pokemon that likes to have the longest noise animation, I think, as well when it comes to Dynamax. It really does put on a show here for the semi-finals. Yeah. Going to get its HP boosted right up there, so it's going to be able to take a lot more of these attacks. Tyranitar just going for a Rock Slide, going to avoid the big Primarina though, but will break the disguise on that Mimikyu, and that's something you always want to do nice and early so that when you've got those super effective moves, you might be able to pick up the nice clean KO against the Mimikyu. Mimikyu, not moving a sec, it's going to be the Max Geyser first of all from the Primarina. Big powerful water attack going into the Togekiss. Wow. That does so much damage, Jake.
That is a huge amount of damage from that Primarina. The Max Geyser often coming off of Hydro Cannon on Primarina, which is, a move that we often don't see, but, some moves like Hydro Cannon and Blast Burn have actually kind of picked up in this format. Just because they, give you those super powerful max moves. I believe we saw Blast Burn Charizard win the first regional in America in this new format too. So, just that's dealing so much damage to that Togekiss in the switch in. The Tyranitar, missing their Primarina is somewhat unfortunate. You missed that little bit of chip damage, but it did hit the Mimikyu, which breaks its disguise, which is important. That is something that I think James needed to do there. But Trick Room going up and Primarina moving after the Tyranitar means it will likely have pretty free reign this turn.
Yeah, I like the switch as well. The rain being up there meant the sand wasn't on the field, and Tyranitar didn't get that special defense boost from it. So get it out, you can reset the weather later, and Rotom is easily going to be able to take more of those water-type attacks. Togekiss just protecting itself from the Mimikyu here, as Primarina goes again for another Max Geyser, targeting into what was the Tyranitar, and Rotom, even though it's not very effective, it's only on 23 hit points here now, Jake. That is almost 2 KOs as Primarina's been able to pick up. Once it goes crazy. Back to Dynamax, it could Hyper Voice.
Yeah, no, that's huge damage. The Rotom, known to be pretty bulky. We see the Citrus Berry, so, it's definitely, got some bulk investment there, you might assume. But that Max Geyser in the rain coming off of Primarina's presumably Hydro Cannon at this point. Like, you would have to assume it's not that powerful move. Shadow Sneak, a really smart option there if James was to follow me that turn. He would have been able to knock out the Togekiss with the Shadow Sneak and avoid having his Primarina redirected. The Rotom coming in and taking that much damage means that even if it chooses to Dynamax this turn, he might still be knocked out by a Max Starfall. And so that's just incredible amounts of damage put out by Marcus originally. And a lot of times if you go straight for like a Dynamax turn one, you might lose a bit of your momentum later on in the game. But if you're taking like 200% damage in 2 turns, I think that's a risk you're willing to, or it's a trade you're willing to make.
Yeah, 100%. Hitmontop jumping in just to intimidate against that Mimikyu. But this could be a risk if you said that Primarina maybe wants to go for something like a Max Starfall that will be super effective into that Hitmontop. Shadow Sneasel coming out once again from the Mimikyu going into what was the Togekiss, like you said, just to stop any redirection from going on. As Primarina does indeed go for the Max Starfall, is going
Oh,
into
that's so
that
smart.
Hitmontop slot. So even
Yeah.
if that was a Focus Sash, Hitmontop's gone.
That's such a smart play from Marcus. He knew that the Hitmontop and the Tyranitar were the 2 Pokemon in the back. He knew that the Togekiss had just protected, so it wouldn't be able to protect again. So if you choose to Shadow Sneak that slot, you knock it out with Shadow Sneak. If the Rotom stays in and doesn't protect, the Max Starfall gets redirected. If the Rotom, or if the Togekiss, I'm mincing words here. If the Max Starfall, if the Shadow Sneak KOs the Togekiss, excuse me, no matter what, the Rotom gets hit. So you don't have to worry about targeting the Rotom with that Starfall. If the Rotom protects and the Togekiss switches out, then you get to hit the Starfall into that slot. That's what I was trying to say.
No,
I got there eventually.
there's so much action. Like, I think you're allowed to get a little tongue-tied when it's all going off here. But I think you're quite right. It was a really wise choice there from Marcus, and he's really gone heavily on the offense here, hasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. He does have, the Trick Room is still up, the Dynamax is over, and if you're James here, I think that Tyranitar is really the only valuable Dynamax option again. But even a Dynamax Tyranitar still probably takes a lot of damage from this Primarina, I would imagine.
Well, the switch is now happening on Marcus' side as that Ferrothorn now does join the field. We haven't seen anything come out against it at the moment to maybe try and pick up KOs against it. So I feel that Ferrothorn, it could be a position to start going for those iron defenses, just so that you can take some of the damage from that Tyranitar a little bit better and then threaten it later on with a body press. As we know, Primarina going to be able to deal some big damage to it as well. But if that Tyranitar is able to pick up some big damage with something like a Max Rockfall, that could put Marcus on a little bit more of a back foot. But I think it's wise here from James to go for the Dynamax, get that extra HP boost on that Tyranitar. And if it's something like a weakness policy, taking any move from the Primarina will proc that, and then it'll have even more offensive pressure. Togekiss, however, is going to be KO'd, returning to its Pokeball thanks to the Life Orb on that Primarina. And Max Rockfall is indeed coming out from the Tyranitar, going as Primarina. It is not enough to pick up the KO, though. Primarina is still going to be here to stay.
Good turn from Marcus there. I think targeting the Rotom slot with that Moonblast was smart. You don't really want to risk, missing a KO on the Tyranitar and possibly proccing a weakness policy, which would allow the Tyranitar to certainly finish off that Primarina with the Rockfall and then put her in a position to start taking KOs later on. Losing the Hitmontop means that the Ferrothorn largely goes unchecked now, unless some Tyranitars carry fighting moves like possibly Superpower. So that's an option there. But like you said, if the Iron defenses start coming out, then even a Superpower from Tyranitar will likely not be able to do any significant damage. So the Ferrothorn looking like it's in a pretty good spot here.
I mean, the Max Knuckle would be really nice because you're not going to get those drops you would get from a normal superpower. You're actually going to boost up your own attack. So that could actually put that Tyranitar in a really good position. However, Dusclops is going to be switching in one of my personal favorite Pokemon from this series so far. And that is a Pokemon that is going to be able to take a Max Knuckle if that's exactly what the Tyranitar has gone for. As Primarina goes for a Perish Song, which is a really interesting move here. And Max Flare on Tyranitar, so it's a pretty good job that Ferrothorn got in and out of there. Really interesting reveal there from James. That's good information for Marcus going forward, that his Ferrothorn is not going to be safe against his Tyranitar.
That's great info. The Perish Song, now that James only has 2 Pokemon, is a great move from Marcus. Because now all Marcus has to do is make sure his Pokemon don't get knocked out in these next 3 turns. And when you have a Pokemon like Dusclops and Ferrothorn, which are known to be incredibly bulky, that's not too tall of an order. Especially when you have 4 of your Pokemon left over. That Max Flare, huge info. Tyranitar often doesn't carry Fire-type moves at all. And so I'm not sure if Marcus kind of expected something like that from James, or just wanted to play it completely safe, make sure his Dusclops was able to eat up an attack. It's just a really smart play there from Marcus. The Perish Song essentially sealing the match, James recognizing that it won't be possible for him to knock out 3 of Marcus's Pokemon before that Perish Song takes effect. So really well played game 1 from Marcus.
Yeah, exactly. He went straight on the offense there. And we were kind of talking a little bit beforehand, looking at the teams, that Marcus would actually struggle a little bit against kind of the big pressure that James had on his team. But instead, Marcus came out with a really strong lead. He forced James to have to switch his ball position constantly. That meant that he wasn't able to apply the offensive pressure that we know James likes to apply
Right,
in his battles. He likes to command that ball positioning. But instead, it was all about Marcus. Let's get the Trick Room up. Let's get Primarina in Dynamax form. And you saw the damage that those Max Geyser of Hydro Cannon were doing. It was
right.
so damaging against James that he either left his Pokemon in to be KO'd by the chip from Shadow Sneak, or he would have to sort of keep rotating them through. But even if you got a Pokemon in the back, if it's on that low HP, saving it for the end game really isn't going to be the winning strategy for you, particularly if your Tyranitar sets up the Sand again. That's going to be more chip going against you.
Right, that Primarina just doing so much work for Marcus there, and if you're James, I think you have to recognize that this Primarina is a huge threat.
Oh,
He
yeah.
did bring the Rotom, which typically good against Primarina. You resist those water type attacks. You have that electric type, either Max Lightning or just a Thunderbolt. Uh,
Mm.
you can possibly boost into it with a nasty plot too. But considering it took almost all of its health from that Max
Yeah.
switch in, which you certainly wouldn't expect if you're a Rotom user. I know I wouldn't at least. He
Yeah.
really just lost his main tool of dealing with it this game.
Yeah, he needs to have the Rotom in that with its HP intact because it's a great
Right.
Pokemon to go for the Dynamax on as well, and then you can threaten with something like a Max Lightning, and be
Mhm.
able to take those attacks much better. But if your Pokemon has come in and it's on, I think it was only on something like 26, 29 HP
Right.
after taking that one attack, it's not really the Pokemon you want to Dynamax because it's going to go down in its first turn of Dynamax, and that's your 3 turns wasted.
Yep.
So it really did put James on the back foot a lot there. So it'd be interesting to see if he changes up his leads a little bit, maybe predicting Marcus to go for the same thing. But do you think they're going to stick with the same thing or maybe switch it all up?
I mean, if you're Marcus, I don't think you're given much of a reason to switch it up. The Mimikyu and Primarina lead, put him in a pretty flexible position. He had that Trick Room option. He had some
Mm.
huge damage options already. If you are James, you don't really want to lead Hitmontop into, a Fairy and a Ghost type again. And it looks like we are going to see a switch up from both players, actually. The Sand lead from James, I don't believe we saw the Excadrill in that first game,
No.
facing down the Primarina and the Dusclops on Marcus's end.
Well, it's still a Primarina and a Ghost type, but instead of the
True,
Mimikyu, it's
yeah.
going to be the Dusclops there for Marcus. And a more classic combination there from James of the Sandcore, Excadrill, and Tyranitar. But don't forget as well, we've now switched the perspective, so Marcus is on your left and James is on your right.
The Primarina is still really not in a bad position at all here. It's a water type facing down 2 Pokemon that are weak to water. And if you're Marcus, you realistically could just go straight for that turn 1 Dynamax again and fire off a super powerful Max Geyser. And it looks like we might just be seeing that.
Yeah, it looks like Pokemon trainers here are going straight on the offensive, but this time it's coming straight from James here with that Tyranitar, maybe taking a leaf out of Marcus's book and going Dynamax turn 1. Big damage coming out here, so that towards the end of the game, you're going to be able to start picking up some clean KOs. Marcus, however, is also going to be Dynamaxing that Primarina, and we know the offensive pressure that it can be dealing out here. Again, you have to worry about something like an Iron Head from that opposing Excadrill that could do some
Right.
big damage, and potentially a double up here could be putting it into quite a dangerous position to maybe try and take a KO. Dusclops, however, is the supportive Pokemon of choice, and it's got such great utility. It can have access to things like Will-O-Wisp, Ally Switch. Be interesting to see how it supports.
Ooh, it looks like that was an Earthquake. Possibly
Ooh.
proccing that weakness policy on the Tyranitar. That could be big damage for James here, and that might be just exactly what he needs to take a knockout. Looks like we're going to see this Max Darkness, though.
Oh, Max Darkness actually being enough to pick up a KO against Dusclops. That is not a Pokemon we often see being one-hit KO by anything.
Right.
But a weakness policy, same type attack bonus, Max Darkness, I think is going to be able to do it. Primarina now standing alone on Marcus' side, going to go for one of those really powerful Max Geysers into the Excadrill, but it looks like that's gone into a Focus Sash.
Yeah, so a really good play from James there. You immediately eliminate the Trick Room option on turn 1. We know that this Primarina is going to be slower than the Tyranitar and the Excadrill. The Sand going down in favor of the Rain, really not a big deal if you are James, because the Excadrill is going to be faster than pretty much everything on Marcus' side of the field, unless that Dragapult comes out. No, he doesn't have a Dragapult. That's James's. Never mind. No, he does. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, there's two
Yeah.
Dragapult speeds. We just haven't seen any yet. And
Yeah,
it'd be
exactly.
interesting to see if maybe Dragapult does like to make an appearance. I know we do get a little bit of intel thanks to the way the stream's set up, but we're going to try our best to sort of avoid it at this stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of Ghost-type Pokemon on Marcus' side. I think that's something we actually kind of didn't talk about, is he's running that triple Ghost core that's been really
Right.
popular. And he's replacing one Ghost with another. We've got Mimikyu on the field.
Yeah, Mimikyu comes out. We saw that Shadow Sneak in game one. That gives Marcus the option to pick off this Excadrill with something like a Shadow Sneak. If the Excadrill doesn't attack before the Tyranitar and gets some chip damage onto something like this Primarina, I'm not sure if the max Rockfall from the Tyranitar will be able to knock out the Primarina without a little bit of help. And we do know it's at +2. We do know that Tyranitar is very powerful. We just see a Tyranitar again confirmed faster than this Primarina, like we saw in game one. So a max Rockfall is the big threat here, but Mimikyu at least able to put off some offensive pressure on this Excadrill, and even under the Tyranitar with something like a Play Rough. Even when the weakness policy is already activated, so you don't really need to worry about dancing around that anymore.
Yeah, I like the Mimikyu coming in here because you can apply pressure with the Shadow Sneak, but you could again predict that that Excadrill is going to jump back out into its Pokeball, and you could just go for the Trick Room here, putting Primarina in a better position. But it does look like Mimikyu was going for that Shadow Sneak, recognizing that Excadrill was the biggest threat. Like you said, maybe the double up would pick up the KO, but Tyranitar alone couldn't do it. But we're going to be able to find out now because Tyranitar is going for that max Rockfall into the Primarina that is able to take it, surviving on 49 HP. Of course, Sand will return, so it will take a little bit of chip damage, but crucially, this means Primarina will be able to get off a second attack here, and it's going for another Max Geyser.
Yeah, Max Geyser into this Tyranitar, thanks to that Sand boost, it does have that increased special defense, but looks like it is not enough. Or is it enough? I'm having a hard time seeing these health bars.
No, I mean, it's
okay,
gone.
there we go. All right, it is gone. Yeah, so Max Geyser able to finish off this Tyranitar, reset up the rain after that Max Rockfall. The Primarina being bulky enough in this Dynamax form to survive that +2 Max Rockfall from a very strong Tyranitar. The Chogekiss coming in, a smart play just so you can preserve that Excadrill. Now that the Rotom comes out, so this is where the Rotom is going to be in a much more favorable position here for James. Even though we can't Dynamax it anymore, the Primarina is at very low health. We've seen this Mimikyu. The Disguise is still up, so Mimikyu actually still has the potential to give this Rotom some issue, but it is next to a very healthy Togekiss as well, so he will have some protection with that Follow Me.
Yeah, a slight change from game one. Togekiss is nice and healthy. Doesn't have to worry about a Shadow Sneak KOing it. It can go for that Follow Me and allow Rotom to maybe go for something like a Nasty Plot, which is exactly what we're seeing. Really popular boosting move here on the Rotom. Likes to get it +2 special attack so it can deal out some really big damage, particularly as this is the last turn of Dynamax. It was just to protect them from the Primarina, but it now will be going back down to its normal size. Will not be able to take those Thunderbolts as well. Mimikyu, however, going to have its Disguise broken once again, but if it's going for something like a Trick Room here, this could put the speed advantage right back into Marcus's field, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, good play from Marcus there. He is able to get the Trick Room up, make sure his Primarina is going to get at least one more attack off. The Dazzling Gleam from the Togekiss was able to break that Disguise. Now the Rotom threatens a lot of damage onto this Mimikyu. I would imagine a +2 Hydro Pump in the rain would be able to knock it out. But the speed order might matter here. Mimikyu is actually naturally a little bit faster than Rotom. But on a Trick Room team like Marcus's, you wouldn't be surprised to see it trained to be a little bit slower. So that might be something he's relying on to kind of get some damage onto this Rotom here. Primarina in the rain will get at least one more attack off here. If it is carrying Hyper Voice, that'll be a great way to kind of bypass possible Follow Me as well.
Well, going to be a protect there from the Togekiss as Primarina. I think that was going for the Hydro Cannon into
Most
the
likely, yeah.
Togekiss there, so just protecting itself. Whereas Wood Hammer coming out, really powerful grass type attack going into that opposing Rotom is going to do a big amount of health, but thanks to having the Citrus Berry on hand, it's going to be able to put itself back over to 50%. Rotom not being KO'd is going to be able to go for a big attack, going for that Thunderbolt. Well, didn't really even need the Nasty Plot there at that stage. Primarina was in such low health, but I think crucially that Protect stopped Primarina from potentially picking up another KO.
Yeah, no, definitely preventing the Primarina from knocking out the Togekiss. Hydro Cannon in the rain absolutely would have knocked out this Togekiss, possibly even twice. Woodhammer reveal from Mimikyu is big because now Marcus has the option to knock out the Rotom with another Woodhammer. However, this Ferrothorn coming in means that if he is running that Iron Defense Body Press Leech Seed set like we've been talking about, it actually really doesn't have a great way to deal with this Togekiss in anything other than the very long term. So if this is a Follow Me, we'll be able to protect this Rotom for a few turns here.
Yeah, exactly. Rotom's going to be able to sit there, start dealing out some big damage. Of course, though, that Ferrothorn doesn't really have any threat. Like, James doesn't really have too many utensils there. The Tyranitar's gone that we saw had the Flamethrower previously. So if you're James, you're going to have to find out a way to counter it. Shadow Claw coming out there from the Mimikyu into the Togekiss as a Thunderbolt comes out to pick up the KO against that Mimikyu. So you can really see the damage output from these Thunderbolts. And it looks like at the minute, James is picking up some really good KOs here against Marcus. He's lost 3 Pokemon. He's just got this Ferrothorn, but as we were talking about, if you don't have an answer for Ferrothorn, it can just sit there and start walling through your team.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have one Pokemon that has to face down three others, I think Ferrothorn is the one you want. And we do know that the Excadrill in the back is down to its Focus Sash, or just has 1 HP left, and there's that Iron Defense like you were talking about. So it looks like that's going to be the way that Marcus tries to win this game here.
Yeah, as well, being a Trick Room, Ferrothorn will be going first. I was
Oh,
going to
that's
say
smart.
you need something on the Togekiss, either flinches or yawn, to maybe slow this Ferrothorn in its tracks. And I think it's wise going for the nasty plot here, even though sort of the water type moves and the electric type moves are not the most effective against the Ferrothorn. If you're able to deal it with the maximum power potential possible, then you might be able to pick up a KO.
Yeah, I think that's a good play from James there. The Ferrothorn will be going to sleep next turn thanks to that yawn. And we do know that the Rotom is now at +4 special attack, which means that it might be able to get a little bit more damage onto this Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn known to be historically one of the best answers to Rotom Wash in
Hmm.
really any form in which they were both legal. But James looking to try to boost his way past it now with this Rotom.
Yeah, just going for another follow me here in case the Ferrothorn wanted to go for another Leech Seed. It would have obviously not really worked as the Togekiss already Leech Seeded up. So going for that Iron Defense again just to help your defensive pressure if that Excadrill was to come in, obviously help out Body Press when Ferrothorn is able to wake up and use it. I think it was a really great play there from Marcus. But as you said, it's now going to take a little bit of a nap, and this Rotom is now at +6. So although it's not going to deal out super effective damage, if the Ferrothorn can't retaliate, can't go for that second Leech Seed, you might be able to whittle away at it here.
Yeah, you might be able to start getting some damage off bit by bit. The Togekiss swapping out for Excadrill, it's smart to do it now because now you don't really have to risk like a stray Leech Seed or a Body Press into that
Mhm.
slot.
Yeah, that's true. Really nice switch. As you know, the Ferrothorn, I keep wanting to say the Tentacruel thanks to the German there.
Same, yeah.
Um, but it's totally not right, as it is going to be taking a little bit of a nap, revealing as well the leftovers on there. But did you see how much damage
That's
that
a lot.
Thunderbolt did? It's going to be
Yeah.
a two-hit.
Yeah, I really would not have expected it to do that much damage. This Rotom, very likely trained a lot in its special attack thanks to that damage. And the +6 from the Nasty Plot coming in really handy there. So it looks
Mm.
like the Rotom will probably be able to finish us off this game, and Marcus does recognize that. Chooses to forfeit, so we're going into a game 3 for our first semifinal here between James and Marcus.
Yeah, game three. That's what we always like to see when the VGC battles are this intense and this high
Yeah.
caliber as well. It's as well. We've really got the best of the best. We want to bring you as much Pokemon action as we can. And I think as well, seeing the comeback that James made in that game really does show the caliber of these players. Marcus came out in game one, went hyper offensive, turn one Dynamax, Bish Bash Bomb with that Primarina. And then you've got game two, James comes out with the Tyranitar, starts picking up some good damage. And that kind of hyper offensive pressure he had at the beginning managed to roll him through into this game two. And his end game strategy there, I thought was really, really good, knowing that the Ferrothorn posed a bit of a threat, but
Yep.
he managed to play around it really well.
I think that was very well done from James. He made excellent adjustments there. And I think preserving that Rotom was huge for him because not only was
Mm.
it able to threaten that Primarina, it was able to 1v1 a Ferrothorn, which
Yeah.
I don't think any Rotom has ever done before in its entire life. So making history here on here on Beastcoast.
Yeah,
But I
Rotom does many things, but it doesn't
yeah.
normally beat Parathorn.
Right. I really liked that Excadrill Tyranitar lead as well. It
Mm.
covers so many options. We saw he gave him the chance to activate his own weakness policy. If Marcus had decided to bring that Dragapult, he would have had the Excadrill to threaten it with that, very fast speed and Sand Rush. And so I think that's a great combo for Marcus to start, for James rather, to start out with. I could likely see another adjustment here. Both of these players are very capable of kind of, analyzing what their positions were in that last game, what tools they had, what they might have lacked, and they could, bring in the next game. So, I think there was some really good info revealed for both players, and I think that with that info, they'll be, looking to kind of, secure this final game in this semifinal here.
Yeah, it's a different mindset as well when you go into a game three, because in those two games, we saw a lot of offensive pressure, and it is kind of that high risk, high reward that you can do in game one or game two, where yes, you might lose a game, but then you can always try and win the next two. Do you know what I mean? You're not out
Right.
at this stage. But in this game, it literally comes down to kind of your winning in for finals. Whoever wins this game is in finals. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
So you will have to play a little bit more carefully, and I guess think not just 2, 3 turns ahead, but really play against the player in this and try your best to outwit them. Don't forget as well, guys, players have switched back. You've got James on your left, Marcus on your right, and there is still a 5-minute delay for this game three.
Yeah, Marcus opting to go back to his game one winning lead with the Primarina and the Mimikyu. James making another adjustment and kind of going straight for the Primarina pressure right away with the Togekiss and the Rotom for his leads. I think the Rotom lead is nice. The Rotom has been, one of the main ways James has to threaten this Primarina, and Marcus has led the Primarina in both games so far. So he is catching this Primarina. It doesn't really have free reign to just Dynamax and fire off attacks anymore. You do have to be conscious of this Rotom here.
Yeah, I love this adjustment here from James. Having the Rotom out here where it's healthy, it's in a position where it can maybe go for that Dynamax, start dealing some big damage against Primarina, really puts him in a strong position. But you've got to remember that the Max Geyser from that Primarina nearly picked up the KO. So I think pairing it up with nice bit of redirection really helps it out here. Primarina going nice and big again, as it has done in all 3 games of the semi-final set. And I can expect probably a nice big Max Geyser coming out from it as well. Togekiss going for that redirection, allowing the Rotom to maybe go for something like the Nasty Plot and get that special attack boost that it desperately needs, putting it in a really great position to start picking up KOs against that opposing Primarina. Mimikyu most likely here going to be going for that Trick Room, but instead of Max Geyser, we're actually going to see Max Hailstorm coming out here from the Primarina. Going to be a clean KO against that Togekiss. That is now no more redirection, as I believe Trick Room's going to go up. So it just puts Marcus in such a great position here going into that next turn.
That's a great play. He hadn't revealed that Max Hailstorm at all yet. So that's one of those tools he kept in his back pocket in order to give him a little bit of an advantage here. Like you said, the Max Geyser did just fail to pick up the knockout in game 1. So a huge, Max Hailstorm there. Knowing that the Primarina, knowing that Togekiss might have wanted to protect Rotom from something like a Max Starfall or even a Wood Hammer like we saw in last game. And so opting to just eliminate that Togekiss immediately, get Trick Room up, and now put his Primarina in a spot where it is going to be the fastest thing on the field. Thanks to the Rotom and Excadrill's speeds kind of being revealed already in this for earlier games. Excadrill coming in here, we've seen it that it has that Focus Sash, but unless Marcus goes for a Max Geyser, or unless James also goes for his own Max Geyser, the Hail will be able to finish, or the Hail will be able to kind of chip away at that Focus Sash. So you really have to be careful about your Excadrill taking too much damage here.
Yeah, I really like the added bonus there of the Hail, really kind of helping Marcus out. It's not something he then has to worry about. He doesn't have to think, hey, how am I going to break the Focus Sash here?
Right.
I guess the only way to negate that would be to kind of go for some kind of weather change of your own. But Rotom is a Pokemon that can do that. Of course, going for a Max Geyser, you can set the rain, which isn't going to be doing that chip damage. And the big Rotom here, going to be able to apply that big offensive pressure, something we talked about previously. And it looks like James is finally in a position to be able to go for it. It does manage to survive the Max Starfall, taking it down to only 50%. We know as well it's got access to that Citrus Berry to just get a little bit of health back. But it's really not as impactful when it's in that Dynamax mode. In all honesty, that's kind of the berry you want when you're not so much in the big HP leagues, let's say. But still, the little bit of HP is going to be beneficial, as Wood Hammer is coming out from that Mimikyu. Still not enough to pick up the KO, meaning Rotom is going to be able to fire off a +2 special attack move in this turn. That's going to be the Max Lightning, super effective, going into that Primarina, and it is enough to pick up the KO. So James able to eliminate the Pokemon that has given him the most problems throughout this set with a cheeky critical hit as well.
The critical hit, it's hard to tell if that matters. We saw the Primarina, take the +2 Max Rockfall from the Tyranitar earlier on, but it's probably safe to assume that critical hit was largely unnecessary. Rotom at that +2 special attack with that same type attack boosted Max Lightning, probably enough to pick up the Primarina without much issue. The Excadrill looks like it goes for an Earthquake here, just to break that disguise on Mimikyu, possibly finish off the Primarina if the Max Lightning wasn't enough. But the Mimikyu here, we saw the Wood Hammer, we saw it do about half, maybe a little bit less than half, to this Dynamax Rotom. And so Wood Hammer looks like it probably would be able to pick off the Rotom here. So if Marcus has something in the back with a pretty strong matchup against this Excadrill, this could be a pretty good position for him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Rotom as well, with the HP it's got remaining, we know the Mimikyu is faster in Trick Room, it can easily pick up the KO. So I wonder if James is maybe going to play a little bit defensively now to try and stall out these remaining Trick Room turns, so that he can use the benefit of his maybe slightly more powerful Pokemon outside of Trick Room going into the later stages of this game. But the Ferrothorn is on the field once again for Marcus. Now, what do you think James can do here against it?
Not a whole lot, especially if Marcus opts for an Iron Defense on this turn. Now, the Rotom won't be able to fire off a +2 max move because it is threatened by that Wood Hammer like we were talking about. And a +2 defense Excadrill really won't take much damage. Or sorry, a +2 defense Ferrothorn won't take much damage from an Excadrill. And once you do get to that +2 defense, you're threatening a very strong body press as well. Super effective in that Excadrill. And so this is a really strong spot for the Ferrothorn. With Excadrill on the field, it's probably safe to assume that Tyranitar's in the back. And we did see that fire move in game 1 from it. So really, it's not going to be a runaway for this Ferrothorn just yet. But putting himself in a spot where this Ferrothorn could be the checkmate.
Yeah, I like the play there from James going for the protect on your Rotom to maybe try and pick up the KO against the Mimikyu with your Excadrill. But Ferrothorn's got something to say about that. Goes straight for the body press without any defense boosts. And with the critical hit, I'm not sure whether that mattered or not. That's something we might have to talk to Marcus about at some point, and picks up the clean KO. So Rodom actually is just going to take a little bit of Hail Chip and is in a worse position going into this next turn, with Marcus still got that Ferrothorn, boosting itself back up with the leftovers. It's not going to worry about taking any Hail Chip, and has removed the Pokemon that was threatening the Mimikyu. So the synergy between those two Pokemon is really great, but you've got to watch out for that Tyranitar because we know that it's packing a Fire type move.
That's a really smart play from Marcus, I think. Since he went for Shadow Claw, it's probably safe doubled into the Excadrill slot. And, the crit made sure that the body press KO'd, but I think the follow-up Shadow Claw would have been enough. And he likely kind of read into the Rotom wanting to protect itself this turn. So a really smart play from Marcus. Put himself in a spot where this Ferrothorn, it will definitely have the chance to body press before the Tyranitar can fire off a fire type attack, because this Trick Room is still up. And even if body press isn't able to KO the Tyranitar, something like a Wood Hammer follow-up from Mimikyu would be able to as well. I'm not sure if we know the speed interaction between the Mimikyu and the Tyranitar. Have we seen that yet this game or this set?
No, I'm not sure we have, and it's definitely worth mentioning because if you activate the weakness policy, you could be putting yourself in a bit of a
Right.
troublesome position. Oh, well, looks like Rodom's failing to go for its Max Guard for the second time there, so leaving itself exposed in this game, as Tyranitar is hit by the Shadow Sneak there from the opposing Mimikyu. It's going to be the body press coming out, though, straight away from the Ferrothorn. It looks like that picked up the KO. My screen is a little pixelated, but it can be a little pixelated. I can still see Tyranitar jumping right back into his Pokeball. So Ferrothorn here, not even having to go for its strategy. There's no Leech Seeds, no Iron Defenses. It's just going for straight body press. And now James is down to just his Rotom. The Pokemon that we said was going to be the hero of this game is
Right.
now down to 23 HP against the formidable force of Marcus's team.
Another really smart play from Marcus. The Tyranitar was clearly the only way that James had left to deal with the Ferrothorn. Knowing that the Tyranitar, might be able to barely survive body press, the Shadow Sneak just gave him, a little bit higher of a chance to score that KO with the body press. So, picking up that knockout, making sure the Rotom won't be able to kind of win this game on its own, which propels Marcus into the finals here at the Coastal League Invitational.
Yeah, we've got our very first finalist, and it's going to be Marcus Statter from Germany. So we've got one side of Europe now into the finals. We were talking a little bit before how each semi-final's got both sides of the pond battling themselves out. So it's going to be interesting to see in our second semi-final who's going to be going against Marcus on Thursday's battles. But I mean, what an amazing semi-final to open up with. It was
Yeah.
so twisty and turny in terms of the leads that went out in games 1 and 2 was so dominant and so decisive to so much of the play that was going on. Whereas in that game 3, it really was that Ferrothorn that came out at the end that just washed through everything there for Marcus.
Yeah, the Ferrothorn was definitely kind of the checkmate piece there. And I think that even the turn 1 max Hailstorm was really important for
That
Marcus
was
there
good.
because he immediately just took, one of James's resources away from him. That Togekiss, could have been a pretty big, way for him to kind of not necessarily deal with the Ferrothorn, but like we saw in game 2 that the Togekiss putting the Ferrothorn to sleep was a bit of the linchpin there and kind
Yeah.
of securing that game for him. So now that if you remove that option, remove the possible follow me's, now the Ferrothorn has pretty much free reign against a Rotom that isn't +6 special attack yet, and an Excadrill that doesn't really have a whole lot of options once you are at that boosted defense.
Yeah, exactly. He really managed to look at James's team and well, like we are saying from game 1, he was making James play on the back foot the whole time. And
Yeah,
that's something that James normally makes other players do. Whereas
exactly. Yeah.
Marcus was able to kind of read the player a little bit, maybe play against his own strategy. And it just meant that Marcus was able to keep dealing out loads of big damage while James was maybe going for more setup options, going for things like the nasty plot, using a bit of redirection, maybe doing some board switches. And in that time, Marcus was constantly doing damage. And it's kind of well known that in order to win this game, you have to do damage. And that's exactly what Marcus did.
Well, not in game 1, he won the game 1 with a Perish Song. So that's like one way to win the game without doing damage. But
Okay, yeah, you got me
generally
there.
speaking, yeah. No,
But
you're
I mean,
very yeah.
Primarina still did some big damage.
Oh, absolutely. Like, uh, even so, I fully agree with you that the way that the Primarina was able to deal out a lot of damage, especially in that third game, taking out the Togekiss, doing a lot to that Rotom with the Max Starfall. Really important for Marcus there because it just put him in such a great spot to win the game with that Ferrothorn in the very end.
Yeah, and I like the 4 Pokemon that Marcus brought as well. Making sure that he had the protection with that Ferrothorn and having the 2 Ghost types on there were really nice. Dusclops, of course, being really, really bulky. We saw it go down really early on, though, in game 2. But generally
Right.
speaking, it's a really great supportive mon, and having the Mimikyu on there as well with sort of being able to set up the trick room. You know, Dusclops is well known for doing that too, and maybe going for like a little cheeky shadow sneak here and there really helped him out. Whereas I think we can both agree the Heat Rodon wouldn't have been the best choice there,
Right.
and the Dragapult, as lovely as it is to see, and it would potentially have had some nice speed options for him. The fact that he was going for that trick room strategy meant that, yeah, I don't think the speedy Pokemon was the option for him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hello?
Hey, Marcus.
Oh, we've got Marcus here for an
Yeah.
interview, just coming in out of the silence.
First of all,
Yeah, I
yeah.
just made an.
Well, congrats on the win. That was a really fun set to watch.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a pretty great set. Yeah, GG's to James, of course, and yeah, that was something. I think that's actually like the first set in this tournament where I'm kind of like really proud of my play and how I played.
That's good. A good time to start too.
I mean, like obviously I was able to win some of my previous matches as well, but
Right.
a lot of them were due to Ferrothorn doing like Ferrothorn things. So while it still made an appearance here, yeah, I felt like it wasn't like, yeah, like the key thing that led to me winning.
Would you say that was the Primarina, most likely?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Yeah, that was such a huge, yeah, it's a huge way for you to deal damage to James's team. He really didn't have much that could kind of stomach those hits from Primarina. Even the Togekiss, which generally a pretty bulky Pokemon, that Max Geyser almost knocked it out in one hit. So it's like the Primarina putting in so much work for you there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of absurd how strong it is. I was using Primarina in some of my earlier rounds as well, but I used it a little bit differently. So like what you can either bring it up front and Dynamax immediately, which is what I was doing in this set, or you can like bring it in the back, like more of a sweeper.
Right.
And so in previous rounds, I actually used like a set with Hyper Voice that can also do stuff like outside of Dynamax. But yeah, for this week, I didn't have like too much time to come up with like an entirely new team. So I like just changed some like bits about it. And yeah, this Primarina didn't have Hyper Voice, was actually Torrent. So yeah, like this time it was definitely meant to Dynamax like every game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I did. And yeah, worked out pretty well.
I love that insight into your Primarina though. Like, I think from what you've just said, how you've brought different versions in different rounds of this tournament, you've really showcased it well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of other players now picking that up. But we've got to give a little bit more love to the Ferrothorn here, because I know it wasn't the most pivotal piece, but picking up those 2 KOs with the body press, like, can you talk us through what you were thinking then? If they hadn't, did you know they were going to pick up the KOs, or were you kind of surprised yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually so against Excadrill, it's not a guaranteed knockout, but I got one round of hail, so I actually doubled up on it
Okay.
with Shadow Claw and Body Press because I was expecting the Rotom to protect. Because I figured, yeah, if James like wanted to win the game, he had to keep his Rotom around until Trick Room was over. So and then once Excadrill was down, Tyranitar comes in, and that's another one of those where depending on his split, like if he's max HP, I think it's like a 50-50 roll almost.
Oh,
so yeah, I wanted to make sure to get the knockout with a Shadow Sneak. And yeah, fortunately, yeah, it worked out well as James tried to go for that double protect. But
yeah, on the Rodom.
yeah. It's kind of cool. Like the thing about this Ferrothorn set is that even if you do not go for like the iron defense boosts, it still does a ton of damage with body press initially.
Yeah.
Especially against fighting type weak Pokemon, obviously. And so I still like, even though I didn't really plan to like go with the iron defense winning game plan against this team, I still felt like it was good to bring in Trick Room just to spam body press.
Yeah, I'm such a huge fan of Iron Defense body press in general. I think it's such a good way to kind of like bulk down, and it's crazy that Iron Defense is boosting your defense like and essentially your attack at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
like imagine it's a move that doubles your attack and your defense. Like it's kind of broken in a way.
It's amazing. And if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it, then it really is just great in the late game, because you can just sit there, sort of bulk yourself up, go for some leech seeds here, and then just start rolling through their team. But I mean, we were kind of worried at one point when we saw the Max Flare come out from that Tyranitar. That was a little bit insane.
Yeah, so was I. So yeah, when looking at the team preview, I kind of expected the Togekiss to have a fire type attack.
Oh, like Heat Wave.
But yeah, I think at that point though, I pretty much had that game won. Like, I was in a really, really good position already due to Perish Song. So yeah, I figured, because actually Ferrothorn is the only Pokemon that I brought to game 1 that had Protect. So I wanted to keep that around for later on, so I could Protect just to make sure that I like win the game. Yeah. But then yeah, James forfeited. I think he maybe could have like stayed in the game just to see what I was doing. To like scout out some moves, because I was actually a little bit like, at first I was like, well, yeah, I got Perish Song down, but then I was like, well, yeah, I cannot really do the switch protect thing
because you don't have Protect.
I don't have many protects. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, because you wouldn't have known that from when you went for the Perish Song. It's like, oh, hey, this is like the dead set win. You just do some switching, do some protects, but actually you kind of psyched him out a little bit there going for the forfeit. So, I mean, that I guess shows why you're our first finalist.
Well, congrats again, Marcus. We're looking forward to seeing you in the finals on Thursday. Thank you for that incredible match to watch too. That was such a fun, great set.
Yeah, thank you. And
always a pleasure.
Yeah, and then yeah, can't wait to watch Aaron against Alex, and then yeah, figuring out who I'm playing against.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You get to do some scouting in the second semifinal here.
Yeah, you can't really sit back and relax. You've got to actually, get your notepad out and start making notes on
I'll
your potential
relax
opponent.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, thanks for having me, and shoutouts again to Beastcoast for hosting this entire thing. And then yeah, let's watch another great set, hopefully.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah, well done again, Marcus. Oh, I mean, that's what's lovely as well, is being able to have those few moments of talking to the winner. You kind of get to see their insights a little bit more and feel their energy from the game as well. Because even though we're in this situation where we're all doing things quite remotely, we're all still here talking about kind of the tournament and getting involved in it all from different places around the globe. So it's really nice to be able to kind of come together and actually like chat about it. Like, I don't know about you, Jake, but that game, I've got so much energy right now just from watching that. It was so awesome. And we've got one more. Like, yeah, what's not to love about this right now? Semifinals is where it's at.
One more that's like guaranteed to be as good as the previous set. Again, all 4 of these players have made it. I think actually all 4 of them have made it to top 4 at Worlds before. No, I'm not sure. Alex at least has made top 8, but they've all top cut Worlds, which is absolutely no small feat. So it's like such a great caliber between these players, and the really cool teams. We saw some great options on James and Marcus's teams. They both did have some of those techs that we were mentioning before. The flamethrower, a huge deal for the Tyranitar on James's end to kind of catch the Ferrothorns that Marcus even mentioned himself that he had been using a lot through this tournament. And then the Wood Hammer on Mimikyu, I think, is a really neat tech too. So a lot of cool stuff. But I think we're going to jump right into our second match here. We have a recap video from some of the action from last week. We did see Cybertron playing against for Alexis. We saw Francesco against Aaron last week, and this match was incredible. This is the match where Aaron kept pain splitting his own Dragapult to kind of put him out of range of Nightshades. I was going insane. I got to cast this match and I was so excited. This was just so fun to watch. These were things that I really would never have thought to do myself. And he could put himself in the spot where the Dragapult barely able to chip down that Dusclops with the Dragon Darts, thanks to some really smart side Nightshade plays.
Yeah, it's where you super identify your win con. And again, looking at this game here between Alex and Eduardo, there was a lot of sort of shenanigans going on here. You've got the Lapras as well, really strong offensive pressure there for Edu getting up the Aurora Veil, but it just wasn't to be. Alex was just able to keep coming through, picking up some good KOs, taking down all the Pokemon they needed to do, and sort of stormed his way to victory here. All 4 of these players have played so well up to this point. These were all really intense, kind of winning in games. Anything could have happened. But just to show why Aaron and Alex were able to take their victories and get through to these semi-final stages. But it's going to be interesting to see if they maybe shake up some of the Pokemon choices they had before. Like, I liked seeing the Milotic previously. Again, a Pokemon that likes to go for some kind of cheeky setup with the Coil and the Hypnosis. And it's always interesting to see how your opponent's going to play around that, whether they're going to set off some kind of Max Lightning or Max Starfall, change the terrain so that you can't go to sleep, or maybe try and pick up a nice KO against that Milotic in some shape or another. So it's going to be interesting how we look at the teams, and we can give you an insight into Aaron's team now, where you can take a lead here from the Duraludon, the Rotom Wash, Whimsicott, Togekiss, Excadrill, and the Duraludon. So a few familiar faces from our game 1 of the semifinals, but there's some new ones there as well, Jake.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've seen a Duraludon at all this entire tournament. This might be the first one of this Coastal League Invitational, and it's neat because Duraludon is another one of those Pokemon that was somewhat popular at the very beginning of the format. It also, much like Gigantamax Charizard, won the first regional here in America in Dallas. And it's kind of fallen off since then. It's not that it's gotten worse in any way, but I think the way that people have started to build their teams might not be as favorable for it. But Aaron bringing it back here and next to the Whimsicott, I think is really cool because Whimsicott Duraludon is one of the kind of the premier combos that we had at the very beginning of this format. We have the Tailwind to boost the Duraludon speed. We have the Fake Tears option to make sure those special type attacks from the Duraludon are doing much more damage. So neat stuff from Aaron here. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I love the synergy between the Whimsicott and Duraludon. Like you said, you can get the speed control, you can also lower their special defense. And I think that's why Duraludon was so popular at the beginning, because it's that unique typing with sort of Steel and Dragon, right? Like not many Pokemon have that.
Right.
And it's kind of like Baby Dialga.
Exactly.
But the fact that you've got like this Steel type Pokemon that can deal out such big special attacking damage, you don't have to worry about Intimidate from, is really, really critical. And I think that's why it was so popular at the beginning, particularly as there were so many fairies running around. There was a lot of Hatterene. Obviously, Togekiss has been everywhere since day one. And it just was a really nice way of kind of hitting those Pokemon. But as you said, it's kind of fallen out of tradition lately as people are building around it. But be interesting to see if maybe Alex has an option against it here.
Yeah, and he does have some pretty strong options against it. Milotic, one of the bulkiest we've seen. Durant actually does resist, both of those, same type attack bonus attacks from the Duraludon, but also not known to have the greatest special defense. So a bit of a trade there. Alex's full team rocking that Mimikyu, Durant, Tyranitar, Arcanine, Milotic, and Dragapult. So this is a somewhat of a I would argue this is one of the more like standard Durant compositions lately. You have the Durant that has some really great offensive options, but you have the rest of the team that can play a bit of a slower game. Arcanine and Milotic known to be on the bulkier end. You have Tyranitar that can play pretty bulky as well. And you have some different speed control options, possible max airstream from the Dragapult. Obviously Mimikyu, a prominent Trick Room user as well. So a lot of flexible options here from Alex.
Yeah, I think I love that so much about Alex's team was the flexibility he's got, particularly with his Dynamax. I mean, looking at the team straight away, Dragapult, Durant, and Tyranitar are all three Pokemon that work really well in Dynamax. We see it quite a lot, depending on the items as well, with sort of Weakness Policy or Life Orb. They can really do some big damage while retaining themselves on the field with the extra HP boost. But as well, I've seen a few Arcanine on the rise where they maybe start going for that Dynamax, Incineroar as well, when we're speaking of these Fire Intimidate Pokemon. But hey, Incineroar's not in the game. It's the reign of the dog right now. So Arcanine likes to be there, maybe going for some of those Dynamaxes. And as well, I have seen Milotic in a situation where maybe it's not going to be able to go for its hypnosis strategy, but it's taken an Intimidate, utilizing that boost that it's got from competitive, and just going for some really big damage. So you have to watch out if you're on the opposing side of the field. So if you're Aaron, make sure that you're not putting Alex in a situation where he's got this versatility with his Dynamax. Like if he's saving that for endgame, that can be catastrophic.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think if you're Aaron, you have to be really careful when you put Alex into a position where he has this opportunity to Dynamax. It's a great point that most of the Pokemon on his team can Dynamax and do it effectively. So really great options from Alex there. I really liked that point you brought up.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad. Like Mimikyu's not really going to be Dynamaxing. I mean, it's not unheard of. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like Mimikyu's definitely not the optimal choice there for Alex.
Right. No, we got Totem Mimikyu in the.
Oh yeah,
it's had its time to be big.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Oh, Totem Mimikyu, that's a throwback. Oh, good old days of Totem Pokemon. But don't forget, guys, this is going to be the second semi-final. So the winner of this match will be facing Marcus on Thursday's grand final. And the finals are interesting as well. It's a different dynamic. It's going to be best of 5. So you really have to make sure you've got that extra endurance and your team is flexible enough to be able to make it through all of those different rounds. So it's going to be a test here between Aaron and Alex. Again, that battle of kind of UK and USA. Who's going to maybe take the victory? But two excellent caliber players. What do you think the lead could be here, Jake?
Oh man, it's really hard to predict. If you're bringing Durant to games, a lot of times you want to lead it, and I do think Durant is a decent lead against Aaron here. Durant threatens a lot of things on Aaron's end of the field, and I think only the Dragapult would be outspeeding it. So if you have Durant on the field against something that could handle the Dragapult, that's a good option here. But again, there's so many different things that Alex can do with this team that it's really hard to predict. Which might be coming at different points.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there could be some nice switches between game 1 and game 2 as well. Like we saw that in the first semi-final. I think we can expect it again from the second one. You know, they're great information scouters here. But we're going to be jumping straight into this game 1 here of the second semi-final. Alex is going for Mimikyu and Dragapult, the double ghost lead on his side, whereas Aaron has gone for Excadrill and Togekiss. Quite a nice classic combination with some redirection and heavy physical offense. Don't forget as well, Aaron is going to be on the left-hand side, Alex is on the right. There's a 5-minute delay just for some competitive integrity, and they will be switching sides during the games.
Neat lead from Alex here. Alex is one of the people that has been, kind of the spearhead of this triple ghost movement. I think it was Malmo Regionals where he first brought this triple ghost team and did very well with it. So, kind of cool to see him bringing that back. We do have the Mimikyu with the possible Shadow Sneak into Dragapult into Weakness Policy combination. If that is kind of the set he has opted to run for here. Togekiss Excadrill, another very strong, very common core in this format. So a lot of cool stuff that could be going on here. Togekiss on this kind of team, it's really hard to tell if it's going to be the bulkier set or more offensive. But I think combined with that Mimikyu, might be a little bit indicative of something that the Togekiss might be more of a damage dealer on this team.
Yeah, and if it is the damage...
I meant Whimsicott, not Mimikyu.
Well, it's fine. I was going to say, even if it is like that physical effect, not physical, but, offensive Togekiss, then that's something the Dragapult has to really worry about as well. And I think you're right as well for the Whimsicott Mimikyu.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Mimikyu wants to get in out of there so it doesn't have its disguise broken by a potential Dazzling Gleam. But straight away, another turn 1 Dynamax. The Dragapult's going to go up here for Alex. Going to be threatening some big damage. We don't know yet whether it's going to be physical or special, and that's always very interesting with Dragapults, which mode they've gone for. We don't really tend to see them mix. We tend to see them on one side or the other, so they can really apply a lot of their sort of investment in their EVs into that strain. But there is going to be a Dynamax on the other side as well with the Togekiss, and that's something Dragapult doesn't want to face down against. And as it's Dynamax, it's unlikely going to be switching out from some of these attacks. Excadrill, they're going for Bulldoze, which is really, really interesting. Trying to lower the speed on the opposing side and revealing some good information there from the Arcanine. Looks like it was the Sugar Berry variant.
So we have the Sugar Berry, neat. That's not something we've seen on Arcanine in the past. And the Bulldoze coming out reveals the Choice Scarf on Excadrill, essentially. Excadrill would almost never outspeed Dragapult unless it was that Choice Scarf variant. Also reveals Infiltrator on Dragapult, which is really neat. a lot of stuff going on here in this first turn.
Yeah, so much information being revealed in turn 1. We hope that our players are spotting all of this as well. Weakness policy coming out there from the Dragapult, and it looks like it was trained to really be able to survive those max Starfalls so that it can always retaliate and attack. Going for a max Airstream, thanks to the Dynamax and Togekiss, is going to be able to take this, but the speed will be going up even further on this on Alex's side of the field now. So negating the Bulldoze on the Arcanine a little bit, but as well that Dragapult now going to be able to outspeed against that Excadrill.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it does reveal Infiltrator, because I think Breaker Excadrill would probably get the speed drop past Clear Body. I think that would work. But either way,
Clear Body still would do it, yeah.
Yeah, but really cool combo with that Togekiss there, because the Scarf Bulldoze means that you're basically ensuring that Togekiss is outspeeding most things in the format. And with that max Starfall, we get some good damage on the Dragapult. Really good info for Aaron there, knowing that it is a weakness policy, and revealing the Shucka Berry on Arcanine, which really not something that has ever been a common Arcanine item. But it's a cool item because Arcanine is one of the best checks to Excadrill in this format, and with that Shucka Berry, you get an even stronger check. However, this Togekiss is still in a pretty good spot. The Dragapult is now at neutral speed again, but with this Bulldoze, it will be dropped back down to -1, so the Togekiss will be able to fire off one more attack before the Dragapult can.
Yeah, and it's not enough damage to pick up against that Dragapult. It's still going to be out here on the field. But of course, the Choice Scarf there really being great there for the Excadrill. Max Airstream coming out though from the Togekiss, going to be able to pick up the KO against that opposing Dragapult, meaning that Alex is going to be losing his Dynamax really early on here, whereas Togekiss looks like it is not going to be going anywhere at the moment. Able to just start changing things up on the field here, Max Starfall, bringing the terrain into effect, and as well Max Airstream here, going to boost up the speed. However, big damage coming out from the Arcanine, gets a critical hit on the opposing Excadrill. Not enough to pick up the KO though, so again, Aaron's still hanging on with both of his Pokemon here.
I think this is such a good spot for Aaron. This Togekiss is now at boosted speed. The Excadrill, even though it took the Heat Wave and the critical hit, it still stuck around. And now he's able to, possibly switch it out, kind of reset, the attack that he wants to lock himself into. Or even, maybe stay and go for some more chip damage with Bulldoze. But this Togekiss will certainly be able to fire off one more max attack. And kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier in this game, the flexibility with Dynamax on really both of these teams. It's great for Aaron that he's able to kind of negate the Dynamax on Alex's end without really having taken much damage. You know, it took the one attack from the Dragapult, but you know he's able to stick around for all 3 turns, get off some more damage with his Togekiss, and now put himself in a good spot to kind of start deciding how he wants to play this end game.
Yeah, exactly. You can see him really running down against the clock here. Last couple of seconds to lock in his moves, as he does have so many different options. He's got to start thinking those turns ahead. Excadrill, of course, could as well fall victim to something like the Shadow Sneak here coming out from the Mimikyu. So it'll be interesting to see if the Excadrill does want to stay in on here. Tyranitar going to switch in, though, going to bring some sand to the field as well, getting some chip damage on that opposing Togekiss. As Excadrill does decide to stay in, goes for that other Bulldoze. So going to be doing some chip damage to both Mimikyu and Tyranitar here. At least you know that it's not going to be weakness policy Tyranitar, as we've already had that revealed on the Dragapult. Otherwise, that could have been a little bit scary. As Togekiss does go for another Max Snarfball, does not target into the Tyranitar. That would have been so great, but instead breaking the disguise on the Mimikyu, so that maybe in the next couple of turns, you can start really doing some damage against that Pokemon.
Yeah. Somewhat of an unfortunate side effect of the Mold Breaker Excadrill is that the disguise wasn't broken by the Bulldoze. The damage actually went straight through the disguise into the Mimikyu, and so the Max Starfall, instead of doing some good damage to Mimikyu, will break that disguise. It's not a terrible trade-off because breaking disguise is better than doing nothing at all. But that the Arcanine is in the back, it doesn't have any speed drops left from that Bulldoze. The Trick Room goes up, which means that Tyranitar is going to be moving first, most likely. And now that the Excadrill and the Togekiss are actually in a spot where they would both be knocked out by Rock Slide, most likely. So Alex kind of turning this game around here, putting himself in a position where, he wasn't really in a great spot as far as speed goes in those first couple turns, thanks to the Max Airstream and the Bulldoze. But now that Trick Room is up, he does have this slow Tyranitar, which will be able to fire off some Rock Slides.
Yeah, the speed really has turned. We saw that in the first semi-final game. We're seeing it again here, where Trick Room really can help you. Even if you're not in an advantageous position previously, the moment you get Trick Room up, you get the speed, you can just start picking up KOs. And Tyranitar here, just going straight for that Rock Slide, does manage to connect on both Pokemon, which is always a bit of a worry whenever you're going for those non-100% accurate moves. Picks up 2 clean KOs, meaning that Aaron will now be down to his last 2 remaining Pokemon going into the rest of this game 1.
Yeah, we do see the Whimsicott and the Rotom coming in for Aaron, so not really, I think, what you want to see. I think the Pokemon that could have won this game for Aaron might have been the Duraludon here, because it would have been able to stand up to this Tyranitar. But Mimikyu, not exactly known for being the most bulky Pokemon, and is known for being one of the fastest, which will be to its detriment here in Trick Room. The Mimikyu and the Tyranitar are both able to threaten a lot of damage into both of these Pokemon, especially since the Rotom can no longer Dynamax, possibly threaten with a boosted Max Geyser or Lightning, but is carrying Nasty Plot as well.
Yeah, Whimsicott's really not the Pokemon you want here. Yes, it can go for some good damage with Moonblast, but a double up could easily pick up the KO against it before that opportunity arises. Tyranitar going for the Rock Slide, obviously not doing anything against Rotom in this turn, as it's gone for the Protect, but goes into that opposing Whimsicott. Does actually a huge amount of damage as Mimikyu goes for the Play Rough. Actually, I thought it was going to follow up into the Whimsicott, but instead going into that Protect, meaning Whimsicott is able to go for that Moonblast. Interestingly enough, not targeting down that Tyranitar, instead going for the Mimikyu, meaning that Tyranitar is now safe to go for another Rock Slide, but that was some big damage there on the Whimsicott. Could indicate the item could potentially be choice banned, just due to the damage output that it had.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage from one Rock Slide. That's not really something you expect to see do all of that damage to Whimsicott. So good point there. It could be very well a Mega Choice Band Tyranitar. One thing that, like Rotom Whimsicott is generally an okay combination, because again, that Fake Tears combination would generally be pretty good with Rotom, especially facing down something like Tyranitar, which really couldn't take a -2 Hydro Pump. Unfortunately, Tyranitar immune to that Fake Tears thanks to the changes to the Prankster ability. So we're just really a tough spot for Aaron here, thanks to just the way that Alex has set him up in the Trick Room.
Yeah, and that was a really tough avoid there. Alex really obviously wanting to try and connect onto that opposing Rotom. The double up there would likely have been able to pick up the KO, but Rotom able to avoid the Rock Slide and take the Play Rough, is able to go for a Hydro Pump, does connect onto the opposing Tyranitar, and it is enough to pick up the KO. So really great defensive strategy there from Aaron, going for the Protect on his Whimsicott, so it manages to survive the turn, and basically telling his Rotom to dodge the Rock Slide. Really, really helped him out in that turn.
Yeah, the Hydro Pump doing that much damage to Tyranitar probably confirms it is a more offensively trained one, like you mentioned. A lot of times Tyranitar opt to be on the bulkier end, but on a team or on a set like a choice band, you might want to run more, attack and speed. Make sure you're firing off as many moves as possible and hitting as hard as possible. So the Hydro Pump actually is able to take it out from a pretty high range of health. And so if you're Aaron, that's kind of what you needed to at least maybe have a chance in this game. We have seen the Arcanine has Heat Wave, so as long as Heat Wave doesn't miss, it will certainly be able to knock out this Whimsicott. And then a Heat Wave in combination with something like a Play Rough or Mimikyu should hit the Rotom as well. But if the Rotom, has some fancy footwork, he might be able to jump around some attacks and possibly kind of steal this game from the clutches of defeat here.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And, it went for the move last time. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron maybe go for the Protect again on that Rotom, just trying to stall out some of these Trick Room turns so that Rotom's in a slightly better position. Yes, going for the Protect here on the Rotom. I wonder if the Whimsicott's going to go for some kind of prankster move here, as we don't have that Dark-type Pokemon negating it anymore. But we're never actually really going to know what Whimsicott's doing here, as it does get KO'd by the Shadow Sneak, which I think is really good there from the Mimikyu, just weakening Aaron's side even more, taking it down to just one final Pokemon, and seeing the Snarl there as well on the Arcanine, going to reduce the special attack Rotom's able to do. However, Trick Room is now over. Arcanine's in a little bit of peril against another Hydro Pump.
Right, Hydro Pump would certainly be able to knock out the Arcanine, but I think if you get the Hydro Pump, you don't risk. You will certainly be targeted with an attack from that Mimikyu. I really like that Shadow Sneak from Alex. It's really just the highest probability play there. Shadow Sneak we know can't miss. And so we'll be able to finish off that Whimsicott, not risk something like a Heat Wave or a Play Rough miss. And then the Snarl, I won't do too much damage to Rotom, but Heat Wave wouldn't either. And the Snarl would put it at -1 special attack, and again, has a smaller chance to miss than Heat Wave. So I just thought the higher probability plays from Alex there, I think, make a lot of sense. And I just think that was such a great, smart move from him.
100%. It really does put the pressure on Aaron. You can see the pressure is building as he goes down just 2 seconds to choose his move. Mimikyu going for the Shadow Sneak, going to be some guaranteed damage there on the Rotom, potentially putting it in range of something from the Arcanine later on. We know it's already had its berry, so there's going to be no regeneration of HP here from the Rotom. Goes for a Thunderbolt, though, going into that opposing Mimikyu. And interestingly enough, Rotom was actually moving last out of those Pokemon. The Arcanine is faster outside of Trick Room, which is not where you want to be in this situation with only 13 HP. But Snarl and Heat Wave do have the potential to miss.
Yeah, if the Rotom was faster than the Arcanine, I actually think this would be a 1-game, provided he hits a Hydro Pump. But really good info, knowing that this Arcanine is going to be faster than Rotom for the rest of this set. As long as another Snarl would be able to pick up the KO, so would Heat Wave. Snarl, again, being the least likely to miss of Arcanine's possible moves here. So, and as long as he's able to connect with that final Snarl, this should be a game won by Alex, which, really well played after the kind of a perilous first couple turns. It's probably caught off guard by the, the Choice Scarf X. Oh my god, he missed! Oh no!
Oh, straight up! No! Oh my god!
What?
Double miss! Oh my goodness! Heart rate just went through the roof, Jake.
Exactly. If you're either of these players, your heart rate is like 300 beats per minute right now. Ooh. That's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Well,
that's funny.
Arcanine says, "I'm not doing that again," and I just connect the Snarl. Woo! Oh, so it's gonna be. Oh my goodness, that was kind of stressful. I'm not gonna lie. Imagine being the players. But Alex does manage to take game 1.
Wow. Okay. That was fun. Anyway, as I was trying to say before we had the scare of the century, the way that Alex recovered from kind of an off-putting first couple turns, Choice Scarf Excadrill with Bulldoze, really not a set we've seen at all. So a really cool tech from Aaron there that, almost hit. If he was able to, kind of take advantage of that a little bit more, that might have been a different game. But Alex, able to turn that around very quickly. As soon as he got Trick Room up and he got Tyranitar on the field, he was able to start doing a lot of damage and put himself in a spot where, even with one Snarl miss at the very end, he was able to, kind of pull out the victory.
100%. I feel like the beginning was kind of that classic game of let's Dynamax, let's get some secondary effects going on here, the max airstream, get some speed up here, just get some big damage out on the field. And then actually in that second phase of the game, it really became a lot more about that strategy of sort of the ball position, getting Trick Room up, making sure you had the right Pokemon in play and going for those rock slides. And I think Alex really was playing with a little bit of bad luck there as well. Missing the rock slide on the opposing Rotom, I think, could have put him into winning that game much quicker so that he didn't end up in that really stressful last couple of turns of the game, because he had all the right pieces in play. He had the right strategy. He made the right moves. and put the situation and the board state into his advantageous position. But the one thing I did really like about Aaron is he still played to all of his outs. He didn't click the
Absolutely.
flip button. He realized there was a win con and played for it. And he nearly got it.
I know. He was so close. He got the 5% he needed, but then missed the 80. So
maybe should have gone for Thunderbolt, hope for a crit or a power or anything.
Yeah. At that point, he probably would have critted anyway, based on everything else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, all we needed in that turn was a crit.
Right.
Yeah, that would have just been the one difference. But game 2 now, there's still so much to play for. They're playing for a space in the finals on Thursday. They've gone through all of their round robin games. They're now getting through into this, and Alex is now 1 game up. Don't forget as well, if you're watching at home, Alex is now on your left, Aaron is now on your right. We switched just for some integrity, and there's still the 5-minute delay. But game 2, here we go.
Bit of a mix-up here from Aaron. We see the Whimsicott and the Dragapult lead this time. We didn't see the Dragapult at all in that first game. And a change from Alex here, too. We see Mimikyu and Arcanine. So I'd like this change from both of them. The Arcanine would have been pretty strong against the Excadrill and the Togekiss that had led on Aaron's side the first game. But Dragapult, a neat mix-up here because now he's put himself in a spot where this Dragapult, obviously the fastest thing on the field, and able to threaten a lot of damage, especially with that Whimsicott next to it. If this Dragapult is trained to be on the more special side of the spectrum, then a combination of fake tears and even a max move V-Ops to Dynamax immediately would be some huge damage from Aaron here. So again, he's threatening a lot of damage with these kind of strong offensive combos that his team can provide.
Yeah, I also like the kind of speed threat here. You've got the Trick Room on the Mimikyu, the Tailwind on the Whimsicott, but as well, both these Pokemon can have access to something like Taunt, so you can stop the opposing Pokemon going for those sort of status moves and doing the advantageous thing that they want to do, if that makes sense. But you have to make sure that you're playing that correctly. Alex, however, going straight up for a switch here, brings the Arcanine back in, wants to maybe keep that for later on. We saw that it was so great in the end game for him, and get the Tyranitar here in play, indicating he's very likely going for that Trick Room. Again, love the full Dark type being immune to Prankster, stops the fake tears as a Draco Meteor does come down into that Tyranitar. Still does a huge amount of damage, and if that had been a non-Prankster fake tears, very likely could have picked up the KO there due to the damage. But Dragapult, nice and speedy, yes, offensive, but Trick Room has now gone out. So I think it's wise that Aaron didn't Dynamax here as well, because it allows him to switch out that Dragapult without losing any of that big kind of offensive roller coaster that he could have.
Absolutely. Not Dynamaxing the Dragapult there was very smart. A Draco Meteor from what is most likely a Dragapult that is trained to be very offensive would most likely have KO'd a -2 special defense Arcanine. So a smart play not to Dynamax. If he had Dynamax there, he would have been in a really tough spot because now he either has to switch out and basically get almost nothing out of this Dynamax Dragapult, or stay in and possibly take a big crunch or a Max Darkness from this Choice Band Tyranitar. Tyranitar is such a good switch there, like you mentioned. Dark types aren't affected by Prankster moves anymore, so not affected by that fake tears. And now with the Trick Room, this Tyranitar is in a really strong spot to start firing off some very powerful attacks, especially threatening this Dragapult.
Yeah, exactly. Dragapult does not want to face down against that Tyranitar, particularly if it is Dynamax, which is exactly what Alex has gone for here. Going to be able to break free of the sort of restrictions that a choice item gives you. It can now select through its moves for these 3 turns. It won't, of course, gain the advantageous extra attack necessarily, but you're in your Dynamax form. You're looking pretty good. Whimsicott going straight for the Protect here as Max Rockfall does come out from that opposing Tyranitar, going straight down into that Whimsicott, actually choosing to just ignore the Dragapult. Will do a little bit of chip through the Protect, but critically Whimsicott is surviving into this next turn as Mimikyu saying, hey, actually, Tyranitar doesn't need to go into that Dragapult. I have a Fairy type move of my own. Play rough, instant KO. The one thing it does give, though, is Aaron the opportunity to now bring in a Pokemon that might benefit better from this Trick Room. Yeah,
no, good turn from Alex there, eliminating the Dragapult. Really not a big threat in the moment now, especially being a -2 special attack in Trick Room. But you do, prevent it from coming back later on in the game, possibly after Trick Room has expired, and starting to threaten a lot of damage there. I like the Rockfall into the Whimsicott. You guarantee some damage to the Protect, especially if you know that Play Rough from the Mimikyu would be knocking out the Dragapult. You don't have to worry about that with your Tyranitar. One bit of information that we actually do have revealed here is that the Mimikyu is carrying these safety goggles. It is not taking any damage from the Sandstorm. And so there's not a grass type, or there's no like Rage Powder on Aaron's side of the field. So not a huge bit of info. There's no threat of Sleep Powder either. So really the only thing that's impacting now is the lack of chip damage from the Sandstorm. But that might come in handy later. The Mimikyu still being at full health after a couple turns in the field with that disguise intact means it is nothing to kind of ignore at this point.
Exactly, and also does eliminate the options that Mimikyu could have. At least you know what the item is, so that does help Aaron out with that information at this stage. Goes for another switch though, switches in the Togekiss here. Again, now we're seeing that Rotom and Togekiss synergy together, where you can redirect moves from your from the Rotom, so that it can deal out some big damage. And big damage indeed it's going to be as it goes for that Dynamax. No nasty plot here setting up. It knows it's in a situation where it's got to take down that Tyranitar, and something like a Max Geyser will be able to do that nice and easy. As well, knowing that it's a banded Tyranitar, very unlikely has a status moves to go for Max Guard, so it will be exposed. And in Trick Room, Rotom going fast here as well. Straight away the Max Geyser into that Tyranitar. It looks like it picks up a really nice clean KO.
That's huge, actually. The Rotom being essentially slower than the Tyranitar. Aaron possibly realizing that didn't even KO. It did survive. Stuck around for the Max Darkness. Able to fire off some good damage into this Rotom. Not enough for the KO, obviously. Rotom, in that big form, even with a critical hit, takes that pretty comfortably. But that's some really good info there.
Yeah, the pixels lying to me again. We didn't see the explosion, I think I underestimated, of course, the sand was up, wasn't it? So that's boosting up the special defense, helping it out a little bit. But that Tyranitar is going to be hanging on at the moment. Rotom are having to take another attack from the Mimikyu. And as you can see, it's actually on 2 HP.
Yeah. So again, the speed there is something that I don't think we had seen confirmed in the first game. But that might be something Aaron had kind of surmised based on kind of the damage he had seen from the Tyranitar. Maybe saw a different speed interaction that might have clued him in. But that's a huge Max Geyser to get off there. The Tyranitar now at 2 HP. The Rotom will be able to finish it off this turn with either a Geyser or a Max Lightning. The Mimikyu getting a player off into the Rotom there. But the Togekiss coming onto the field, a really smart switch from Aaron, because now he gives himself a chance to, again, protect this Rotom from some damage. Now, a bit of a risky play, considering that Alex had Max Rockfall that slot the previous turn. So if he did want to do that to finish off the Whimsicott, the Togekiss would have been just immediately wiped out. But Aaron kind of taking a risk there and paying off well, because now he knows that this Rotom will have a chance to fire off some more Max moves.
Yeah, and just goes for another Max Geyser into that Tyranitar. Although it's like the big damage going into a small amount of HP, critical hit, really
revenge critical hit.
Yeah, exactly, just retaliating in that way. As it most likely wouldn't guard, it could potentially switch and you're still going to do some big damage, but either way, you get rid of that Tyranitar, it's gone. Dazzling Gleam comes out from the Togekiss there, able to break the disguise on the Mimikyu, leaving it vulnerable in the next couple of turns. That could be Rotom's next target going into its final form of the Dynamax, as Mimikyu does just go for a Play Rough, and Rotom actually avoids.
Unfortunate miss there. That Play Rough might have come close to knocking it out. And if Play Rough itself hadn't knocked it out, probably would have put it in range of something like a Shadow Sneak. But the Rotom, again, knowing that those speeds were, as they were, the Rotom able to finish off that Tyranitar, which frees up the Togekiss from not having to redirect a Max move, allows it to use that Dazzling Gleam to break the disguise. So Mimikyu, after 3 or 4 turns on the field, finally taking its first damage and has that disguise busted.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see who Alex decides to bring in here. Again, we have insight to what his 4th Pokemon is, even though it hasn't really been revealed.
Right.
We know he could bring that Arcanine in, and I think the thing that would be interesting about the Arcanine is, yes, you go for the Intimidate. It's not really doing too much in the situation, but it could almost be some kind of bait, switching the Milotic, take a Max Geyser. But that's where, if you're Aaron, you have to think here. I could go from Max Geyser into this Arcanine, maybe try and pick up a KO. It could have Protect. Or I could always go for something like a Max Lightning into the Mimikyu. Or again, even a Max Geyser in the rain and try and pick up a KO there if you feel like the Arcanine isn't a threat.
Right. The Trick Room still being up means that we saw the Rotom will be underspeeding the Arcanine and attacking first in Trick Room. So if he does opt to go for a Max Geyser into that slot, certainly able to knock it out in the rain. But it's gonna come down to what these players have opted to kind of play their outs here.
Yeah, well, Milotic is now being revealed as the 4th and final Pokemon here, jumping in here for Alex as Max Geyser. So Rotom sticking with the same Max move here, but actually does go into that Milotic. So was trying to get rid of the Mimikyu, knowing the Arcanine couldn't really threaten beyond going for something like a Snarl. As Togekiss goes for the Air Slash, maybe trying to stop the get the flinch here, as it has done, to stop any of those special attack drops that Rotom and Togekiss really don't appreciate.
Yeah, kind of good. Decent turn for both players there. The Rotom Max Geysering into the Milotic, which is huge for Alex. Now the Arcanine will be faster than the Rotom, and the Togekiss, since Trick Room is over, able to fire off a Snarl to reduce their special attack. The Milotic coming on the Max Geyser means that it dodged the Max Lightning, which is huge for it. Now it might be able to survive something like an unboosted Thunderbolt, possibly start going for those recovers to make sure it's at high health, and then eventually go for those coils, maybe Hypnosis to kind of start buying some turns for Alex's team here.
Yeah, I like the Rotom here because you can't ignore it. You know, there was no max lightning, so there's no electric terrain on the field. It is in a position where it can go for those coils and go for the hypnosis. So if you don't take it out, that's exactly what it's going to do. And going for a protect here, kind of risky from the Rotom. Snarl comes out. Yes, you do avoid taking a special attack drop. But it's going to be interesting to see if Togekiss maybe has an answer. And what the speed's going to be of this Togekiss versus the Milotic. It is faster, goes for the Air Slash, but Arcanine avoids, as Milotic, as you said, Jake, just goes for that recover, doesn't want to set up yet, just get itself back up to full HP, and then it's ready to do what it's got to do.
A smart recover there from Alex. When you're playing the long game with, it's important to make sure that it's always, somewhat healthy. You don't really want to put yourself in a position where a double up from your opponent could take it out. And so especially when combined with that Snarl, a Thunderbolt probably would not have been able to pick up the KO in Milotic. So Milotic now at full health, possibly able to start firing off some Hypnosis, maybe opting to go for Coil first to kind of increase his odds. But this Milotic in a spot where, combined with the Snarls from this Arcanine, might be starting to take over this game just because Aaron's losing some of his ways to damage it.
Yeah, exactly. His momentum's really falling now as the Snarl connects on both opposing Pokemon, lowers the special attack. Togekiss going for another Air Slash, so really he needs to be able to get these flinches. It does barely any damage, so Milotic's going to be sitting really pretty. The Hydro Pump, though, is going to do some good damage, though. Really big damaging move. The Rain is up as well. It's got the same type attack bonus. Arcanine is going to be leaving the field, but Milotic actually going straight for the Muddy Water here, getting the boost from the Rain, boosting up those Water-type moves. Picks up the KO against Rotom, but did you see how much it did to Togekiss?
That is a lot, yeah. I think that's a really smart money ending. If not right now, yeah, there it goes. So the Rain ending now means that was Milotic's last chance to get that boosted Muddy Water off. And knowing that the Rotom was at very low, it would have been nice to finish off that Pokemon, not worry about having to take an electric type attack. And now that the Whimsicott comes in from Aaron's side, it looks like Alex, as long as he doesn't get kind of cheesed with a lot of Air Slash flinches from this Togekiss, this Milotic might be able to bulk down the rest of the game because a Whimsicott generally not known to carry grass type attacks, something like an Energy Ball. It is possible that's something we have seen before, but generally speaking, only carries that Moonblast, which kind of, funnily enough, runs a chance of lowering special attack, but in Milotic's case, actually boosting it.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of are like, yeah, Moonblast me, activate my competitive.
Right.
That's great. Whimsicott, however, going just for the Tailwind here. Interesting against that Mimikyu. Togekiss going for the Air Slash, though. We already knew it outsped against that Milotic, but instead just going straight into that Mimikyu does indeed get the flinch, as Milotic actually just wants to stick with the damage output. Even though there isn't any rain, the damage that it did previously was enough that it's going to pick up the KO against Togekiss outside the rain, if that makes sense. It was going to be a nice 2-hit.
Right.
So you might as well remove the Pokemon that can not so much do the most damage, but cause the most disruption with those flinches. And now you're just against a Whimsicott, who really isn't the most threatening Pokemon in the world.
Yeah, such a smart way for Alex to play that in game. He knew that Milotic was a really great option against the remainder of Aaron's Pokemon, as long as you can manage the Rotom. And so when he brought in the Milotic, taking that Max Geyser was such a great switch. Reserve that Mimikyu for later on. He got the Milotic in without taking a lot of damage, and he's able to threaten the Rotom with Snarls, which is such a great boon for Milotic because it kind of let it not fear the Rotom as much as it would generally need to. And once he was able to get that recover off, I think that was basically the end for Aaron there, just because that Rotom was really no longer in a spot where it could take the game against Milotic.
Yeah, I love that synergy as well with the Milotic and the Arcanine, really helping each other out. Going for the Snarls to reduce the special attack and having Arcanine there as a Pokemon that you also want to KO. You don't want to be snarled. You don't want to be taking the damage. But then at the same time, you don't want to leave Milotic alone. But you kind of don't have the sort of utensils to be able to KO against it. So it just goes to show this is why Alex is going to be your second finalist. He's going to be facing against Marcus in an all-European final, can I just say? Like,
my American brothers let me down.
Like, we're sitting here on either sides of the pond. But yeah, so unfortunately for the American competitors here, it's going to be Team Europe final, but against two amazing sort of titans of VGC. So it's going to be incredibly exciting. And I think we're going to grab Alex for a little bit of an interview. I'm sure he'll turn up at some point just as Marcus did and surprise us.
Yeah. These are two of Europe's best players of all time in the finals. Alex and Marcus. They're both multiple national championships between the two of them, multiple world's top cuts between the two of them. So, really unsurprising to see them here in the finals of this tournament.
Hello, guys.
Oh, hey, Alex.
Hey. What's up?
Oh, huge congratulations. Well done. You're in the finals.
Thank you. That was a very crazy set. That was very crazy.
Absolutely. That was really fun to watch. I think both of the games, it was hard to tell who was going to win until, close to the very end.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though it was like a 2-0 set, I think that's a really good mark of a great set when both of the games are just super down to the wire.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them, to be fair. Like, they were really funny. There was a lot of lag in both ends, but it was, but it was
the very end
really
of
fun.
game one, all of us had a heart attack at the same time.
I mean, yeah, that was very crazy. I thought I lost at that point when I saw the snap miss.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this is over. But whatever, it's Pokemon, I guess.
Well, luck was still on your side though, because you got the second snarl and took that game one. So
Yeah.
it was certainly a really commanding victory after that point. You know, there were a few twists and turns, but you always seem to have an answer against him. And I think one thing that was interesting is both of you had your steel type Pokemon kind of left on the bench. You didn't want to bring Durant to this.
Yeah, okay. So the reason I didn't bring Durant was because I was expecting himself to actually bring a Whimsicott plus Dragapult. I was expecting his Dragapult to be special, which it actually was. So yeah, I was expecting his lead, and he didn't bring it in game one, so that's why I didn't bring Durant. I didn't bring anyway in game two because I thought my Dynamax would be better with Tyranitar for game two, so that's why I actually didn't bring it. And yeah, I brought my Lottie, which I thought was good against his mode, Excadrill Togekiss. So yeah.
That Excadrill Togekiss is something that I imagine at least caught you a little bit off guard with that choice
Oh,
card.
for sure.
Those.
For sure. Yeah.
I think that was a neat option. Like when you saw that, what was your reaction to it, and then how did you kind of decide to play around it after that?
I thought the game was over. Yeah. It was pretty difficult. Like somehow I was able to stall his Dynamax. I think he made a slight misplay. Like he went for Baldos plus Max Torfall into Mimikyu, and I thought he actually covered the switch from my Arcanine, which I went for Trick Room and I switched my Arcanine into Dieter. If he went for Starfall into the Arcanine, then I think the game would have been over and he would have won game one. So we would have played a potential game three. So yeah, like I think that was a small mistake from him, and then I could capitalize on that. So yeah, I don't know, like crazy set to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, looking at your team as well, like it's quite similar to ones we've seen you use previously. But the one thing that Jake and I were talking about is some of the really interesting item quirks you've got on there as well, like Sugarberry on the Arcanine and the Band on the Tyranitar. Can you talk us through a little bit, like when you were team building, why you chose those items? Because we love to see them. We thought they were really creative.
Okay, so the Arcanine is Sugarberry basically because I do not have a ground resist, as you can see.
We all need ground resist.
and well, Sugarberry definitely improves my Excalibur matchup. So yeah, that was very helpful. Not in this matchup in particular, but like in practice, it was really helpful against opposing Excadrill, even Durant. So yeah, like Sugarberry has worked really well in practice. So for the Choice Band, I think Choice Band in Dieter is actually underrated. Like
I love it. Big damage.
Yeah, lots of big damage. I couldn't pull the mode through though. Like what I mean with the mode is actually Dragapult plus Dieter, like Max Airstream plus like there is Max Airstream plus Max Phantasm with Assurance or Rock Slide, and it does so much damage. It's crazy. Yeah.
That's
really
neat. I like
crazy.
that a lot.
Yeah, like as I said, it's quite underrated, and I like Choice Band Dieter a lot. I don't know if I will use it in the future. Like last week, I used a very similar team with Weakness on Dieter, and I had Ferrothorn instead of Dragapult.
Okay.
So like, yeah, the team was pretty similar. I made some small mistakes, small changes, because like there were some flaws in the team, and I thought this would patch up some of the flaws, as I just said.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if you were able to see. I think you guys saw it, but my Mimikyu actually has safety googles as well.
Yeah, we saw it in the game as well because it didn't take up the sand.
Yeah, so the reason my Mimikyu is actually safety, it's because I can do Durant plus Mimikyu against Trick Room teams, and if they have either Butterfree or Indeda as the Red Direction one, and if they have indeed, sorry. If they have Dust Globes or Hattie next to them, I can either max max spike, KO the Redirection Mon, or even if I don't KO the Redirection Mon, which could be the Butterfree, I could go for max lightning and then go for taunt into the Dash Globes. If it's the Hatterene, then I wouldn't Dynamax my Duran, I would Dynamax my Mimikyu. So if they go for Butterfree plus Hatterene, I can max my Mimikyu and KO his Hatterene. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Sorry for the long thought process.
Oh, no, you're good.
Oh, no, it's really insightful to see. And
Yeah.
like, it just shows all the synergy in your team. Like, it's so clever. Like, I wish I had the skill. It's honestly amazing. Like, seeing how everything's been thought through, every scenario that you could face against. And it just meant, we were kind of saying beforehand how versatile your team is. Like, you have so many Dynamax options.
Yeah.
And just hearing you talk through your thought process, like, your team was super flexible. And it just shows why it got you through to the final.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I actually love my team. Like, it's so flexible. I can play around so many modes, and yeah, like I'm very content. I don't know if I will use it in the finals. Like, I really have to think about it because I think my matchup against Marcus it's not the best. Like, Primarina is a little bit annoying for this team.
Yeah,
so,
I can see that.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm going to use. I don't know what he will use, but I'm super excited. European finals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm hyped about that. Jake's a little sad.
It's fine. It's gonna be a great match anyway. I'll...
Sorry, Jake.
It's fine. Well, congrats again, Alex. You know, we get to see you in the finals on Thursday against Marcus. Bound to be an incredible set. So good luck to you in that finals match. And thanks to everyone for watching. This has been a incredible, semifinal day here for the Coastal League Invitational on Beastcoast. Again, we do have Alex versus Marcus in the finals on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So don't forget to tune into that. That's going to be a really fun match to watch, and a best of 5 as well.
Yeah, best of 5 as well. Not something we often get to see. But as you can see there from the bracket, you got Marcus and Alex going to be facing out in that best of 5 strategy to become the champion and to obviously take a nice portion of that grand prize pool, $5,000. So it's going to be an intense game. We've got 3 phenomenal casters going to cast over that. So it's not going to be a best of 3, but you've got three voices on there, which is pretty awesome. I think it's going to be Ben, Brandon, and Lee all coming together to do the final. So super hype. I can't wait to sit at home and watch it. It's going to be amazing. Like,
I know I'm going to have so much fun watching it. Yeah.
Well, and it's been awesome casting with you too.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Dream
Team
come
Blue
true.
Jacket.
We finally got to do it. Team Blue Jacket came through. Again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to watch the grand finals on Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Beastcoast GG. Our 2 finalists will compete for the title of the Coastal League Invitational Champion and their biggest chunk of that $5,000 total prize pool. So it's going to be really fun.